All right, welcome back. So the title of this mini lecture is The Cold War in Latin America, Part 2. We're going to have a few of these as we talk about the role of the Cold War era in Latin America and across Latin America, because there's a lot to this and it's pretty complex. So, all right, we're going to talk about five more things that you need to know, that you need to be thinking about as you go to read and do research and try to understand the complexities of the Cold War in Latin America. All right, so number one, the PRI and dirty war. All right, PRI and dirty war. Now, PRI is the acronym for political party in Mexico. It's a very famous, a very important political party. It's been around for decades and decades and decades. Well, as the establishment in the 60s, particularly around 1964, you start to see their support for a crackdown against any kind of leftist any kind of revolutionary activity or governmental opposition that was occurring across Mexico. Now, by the time you get to early 64, again, the impact of the revolution in Cuba and the desires on the part of Che Guevara and his supporters to really build a Latin American sort of network of revolution results in like-minded individuals in all over the region who are apt to want to seek new political realities. And so the PRI carries out a campaign of repression against them. They get support from the United States to do this because, again, this is the Cold War, and you have hundreds of individuals who disappear, a number of them individuals who die. And again, the Dirty War lasts for about 10 years, and it begins in 1964. As a part of this, another example of this, so the second point would be the Tlatelolco massacre. So again, this occurs in 1968. This occurs on the eve of the Olympics in Mexico City, where the army is involved and a number of protesters are massacred. It's a brutal crackdown, and there, of course, sort of the thought was that it's communists and all that stuff. But again, the lens of the Cold War with this and the internal politics of Mexico are also kind of at work. All right, number three, Pinochet. Augusto Pinochet. This is a Chilean dictator who comes to power in the mid-70s. This is a pretty brutal individual as well, noted for his repressive regime. You had this political upheaval in Chile in the late 60s and the early 70s, and he comes to power and, again, is another example of one of these kinds of leaders. Number fourth thing for us to know would be Argentina's dirty war, sensing a theme here. So beginning in 1976, a violent and repressive military junta came to power in Argentina and began systematically repressing anyone who opposed their rule across Argentina. Now, their dirty war lasted for about 7-8 years, and it was a time of disappearances. It was a time of what were called death flights, where they would take prisoners and take them out over the sea and drop them, drug them up and then push them out, kill them. So we're talking thousands of individuals who are killed by the regime here in a repressive crackdown that lasted for a long while. And in many ways, of course, Argentinian politics today, they're still coming to grips with a lot of this. All right, number five, the Falklands War or the Malvinas War. So the Falklands War is important for the Brits. It's important for the Argentinians. And it's also through kind of the lens of the Cold War. So the Argentinians, of course, these islands are off their coast. The Brits had controlled them, or at least claimed control, since about 1833. And the Argentinian military kind of goes in and takes over in 1982. And they think that the Americans are going to back them in this. So the United States, in the midst of the Cold War, is going to go against their number one European ally to back Argentina. No. So it doesn't work out the way that the military junta had hoped. The Americans support the British here, who will carry out a military campaign against the Argentinians to retake the islands, and they do so. And by 1983, this leads to the breakdown of the junta, and the dirty war is over. All right, thanks so much.